I've learned that moments that seem small at first can split your life into a before and an after. And the moment my son asked me to sit in the back at his wedding, in that quiet, trembling voice, became the calm before a storm nobody saw coming. If you've ever felt like family treated you like a stranger in your own story, then what happened next will make you stop, breathe, and remember your worth in ways you might not expect. I should start by saying that I raised my son, Daniel, alone. His father passed when Daniel was barely 6, and from the day I held his little hand at that funeral, I became mother, father, teacher, and anchor. We were a team. We ate dinner on the couch when times were rough, celebrated every report card like it was a national holiday, and promised each other we'd always show up for one another. That bond became the loop that keeps echoing through my mind even now, especially when I think back to the day he told me I wasn't welcome in the way I once was. That's why what happened at his wedding cut deeper than I expected. The request came on a Thursday evening. I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed. Daniel's name lit up the screen, and I smiled the way mothers do whenever their grown kids call. His voice, though, wasn't the warm, easy tone he used to have. It sounded tight, rehearsed, like he was forcing himself to say something he didn't truly believe. When he said, "Mom, at the wedding, we're going to need you to sit in the back row," the air thickened around me. I stopped breathing for a second because it didn't sound like a request. It sounded like an order. I asked him why, hoping there was some mix-up or maybe a planning error. Instead, he mumbled something about family seating being complicated and keeping things smooth. But when he said, "I don't want you to make things awkward for Emily," everything clicked painfully into place. Emily, my future daughter-in-law, had never warmed to me. She saw me as competition instead of family, as a reminder that Daniel came from somewhere before he came to her. I tried. I really did. I offered support, space, kindness, but it always felt like she wanted me invisible. When he hung up, something inside me cracked, but another part came alive. The part of me that remembered the nights Daniel clung to me after nightmares, the part that stayed up through sickness, doubts, heartbreaks. I knew I deserved a place at his wedding, not as background decor, but as the woman who raised him. But I also knew that fighting him would only push him further into Emily's shadow. So instead of confronting him, I decided on something else, something quiet, unexpected, and far more powerful. The idea came to me in a moment of stillness the next morning. I was sitting at the kitchen table sipping tea when an old friend's name crossed my mind. Robert. A gentleman. Widowed. Calm. Warm-hearted. He always said I carried myself with the grace of a woman who deserved to be seen. And maybe that was exactly what I needed to remind Daniel, remind everyone, on that wedding day. I called him. He answered with that soft voice of his, and when I told him everything, he didn't judge, didn't laugh, didn't pity me. He just listened. Then he said, "If you want someone by your side, someone who sees your worth, I'd be honored to stand next to you." It surprised me how steady his words were, like he'd been waiting for the right moment to step fully into my life. And right then, I knew this wasn't revenge. It wasn't pettiness. It was reclaiming dignity. Before we go deeper, let me pause for a heartbeat and say this. If you're listening and stories like these grip your heart, don't forget to follow Celeb Pulse. We tell cinematic stories that reveal the truth behind the cracks families try to hide, and your support keeps this community growing. With that said, the next part of this story unfolds like a movie you can't look away from. Because as Daniel's wedding day approached, something strange began happening around me. Friends I hadn't spoken to in months called to check on me. Neighbors asked if I needed a ride. Even my sister, who usually kept her distance, showed up at my door with a dress she said had mother of the groom energy. It was as if the universe knew I was walking into a battlefield dressed in grace. And the funny thing is, I didn't feel sad. Hurt, yes. Disappointed, absolutely. But I also felt strong, as if the version of me who raised Daniel alone was stepping forward again, the mother who faced storms and didn't flinch. By the time the wedding day arrived, I had made peace with something important. Sometimes the people you sacrifice everything for forget who you were to them. And sometimes showing up with quiet confidence shakes their memory awake in ways words never could. That's the loop that ties this story together. The way love can wound and heal at the same time, and the way dignity can speak louder than anger. And as Robert and I drove toward the venue that afternoon, the sky clear and bright, I had no idea the moment we stepped inside would freeze the entire wedding party in place. But I'll get to that.
The drive to the venue felt strangely calm, the way the air goes still before a storm rolls in. I watched the sunlight flicker across the windshield while Robert's hands rested steady on the wheel, his soft cologne filling the small space between us. It wasn't romantic, not in the way people expect, but it was grounding. It reminded me that I wasn't walking into that wedding alone. That simple truth became the emotional thread pulling me forward. As we got closer, I couldn't help looping back to the memories of raising Daniel. Every mile brought back another moment. His little hand slipping into mine on the way to kindergarten, his graduation day when he hugged me so tight I felt his pride pulse through him, the night he told me he got engaged and I cried tears of joy. Those memories felt fragile now, like someone had taken a sharp edge to them. But even in the ache, there was love, the kind that doesn't vanish just because someone forgets it for a moment. The venue appeared around the bend, a gleaming white building with glass walls reflecting the afternoon sun. Cars filled the lot, people in elegant clothing streamed toward the entrance. And somewhere inside all that beauty was a reserved spot for me, far in the back, tucked away like an afterthought. The idea stung, but before the feeling could settle too deeply, Robert glanced at me, a small, warm look that said, "You're stronger than this moment." It connected to something steady inside me, something I had nearly forgotten I possessed. When we stepped out of the car, the breeze caught my dress, lifting it lightly around my legs. I had chosen a simple but elegant navy gown, one that made me feel like myself and not like a guest in someone else's play. I held on to that feeling as we walked toward the entrance, arm linked with Robert's. People turned, not because we looked dramatic, but because confidence, quiet confidence, has a way of shifting the air around you. Inside the lobby, a soft melody floated from the reception hall. Guests chatted in soft hums, and then I saw her, Emily's cousin Lauren. She spotted me instantly, her eyes widening in a way that could only mean one thing. The rumor mill had not prepared them for the fact that I wouldn't be arriving alone. She blinked at Robert, blinked at me, then hurried down the hall like someone running to deliver urgent news. That moment, that sudden ripple of attention, told me one thing. Emily had planned a narrative, a quiet mother-in-law sitting alone in the back, a symbol of distance, control, maybe even victory. But my presence with Robert shifted her script before the ceremony even began. Connection point or not, life doesn't always follow the storyline people write for you, and sometimes just showing up with dignity flips the whole plot on its head. We had barely taken 3 steps when another familiar face appeared, Daniel's childhood friend Tyler. He froze mid-sentence when he saw me, his gaze flicking between us. Then he smiled, wide and surprised, the kind of smile that said he had missed me without knowing it. "Mrs. Grant, wow, you look incredible." His words weren't romantic. They were respectful, recognizing, humanizing. He shook Robert's hand, and the 2 men exchanged greetings like equals, not like a placeholder and a stranger. When Tyler walked away, I felt tears sting the back of my eyes. Not because of anything he said, but because it reminded me that I once held a place in Daniel's world where people saw me as important, not inconveniencing. That memory lingered with me as we made our way down a hallway adorned with white roses and gold candles. The wedding planner walked past us with a clipboard and shot a confused glance, one of those "you're not supposed to be here yet" looks. And again, I felt something inside me straighten, like a spine that had forgotten its strength. When we reached the ceremony hall, we stopped at the entrance. A young usher, barely 20, greeted us with a polite smile that quickly faltered when he checked the seating list. His brow furrowed. Mrs. Grant, it says here you're in the back row." He hesitated when he saw Robert beside me, unsure what to do with this version of the story unfolding before him. Before I could respond, Robert placed a hand gently on my back, not pushing, just grounding. He said, "We'll sit wherever she's comfortable," his voice carrying a firmness that echoed through the quiet space. The usher blanked, unsure how to refuse without causing a scene. And in that small moment, something remarkable happened. I realized I wasn't angry. I wasn't even embarrassed. I was simply done shrinking to make other people feel bigger. But the moment snapped into sharp clarity when I saw him, Daniel. He stood at the far end of the room talking to the officiant, his suit crisp, his hair neatly groomed. My breath caught. There he was, the little boy I raised, now wrapped in the confidence of a grown man. For a second, my heart softened, and then he turned and saw us. His expression didn't just shift, it collapsed. Confusion, shock, discomfort, and something like guilt flashed through his eyes all at once. He stepped toward us slowly, as if trying to process the image. His mother standing tall, beautifully dressed, with a confident man by her side. It wasn't the narrative he expected, not the quiet shadow he imagined would slip unnoticed into the back row. He approached with a hesitant smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Mom, you're early, and who is this?" His voice cracked just slightly, the way it used to when he lied as a child. And before I could even answer, Emily appeared beside him. Her gaze landed on Robert, then on me, and her jaw tightened. She didn't say hello, she didn't smile, she just said, "I thought we told you the seating arrangement." Her tone wasn't sharp. It was cold, controlled, the kind of voice that slices through rooms without raising its volume. And in that instant, every emotion I'd been holding at bay surged. Every memory, every sacrifice, every moment of love that brought me to this day. I didn't react yet, but inside, something powerful shifted. Before we dive into what happened next, let me pause for a second. If you're still with me, and this story is pulling you in, make sure you're subscribed to Celeb Pulse. We bring you emotional, cinematic stories just like this, and your support helps keep them alive. Now, let's continue. The look Emily gave me wasn't just territorial, it was triumph disguised as order. She believed she still had control of this moment. But she was wrong, because what happened next changed everything.
When Emily's voice cut through the room, cold and clipped, it felt like someone had dropped ice water down my spine. She didn't look at me the way a daughter-in-law should look at her husband's mother. She looked at me the way someone looks at a problem they're trying to quietly remove. And for a heartbeat, I felt that old, familiar sting. The kind that comes when someone tries to shrink you, fold you, tuck you away like you don't matter. But before I could respond, Robert stepped slightly forward. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just enough that his presence filled the space Emily's words had hollowed out. His calm expression didn't change, but something about the way he stood drew every eye around us. It was like the room shifted and remembered that I was someone worth standing beside, not behind. That tiny shift became the connection point that kept my emotions from spiraling. "Good afternoon, Emily," he said with a warm, steady tone. "You look lovely. We're happy to be here." He didn't correct her, didn't confront her. He just re-centered the moment as if her sharpness had been nothing but a passing breeze. And the way people around us subtly leaned in made something inside me lift. It was a reminder that calm confidence rattles people who depend on control. Emily blinked, thrown off for a fraction of a second. Then she recovered and looked at Daniel, silently urging him to fix this. He inhaled sharply, clearly overwhelmed. "Mom, we just thought..." But he couldn't finish. He looked at me, really looked, and I could see the conflict swirling in his eyes. He hadn't expected me to walk in with confidence or a companion. I softened my voice. "Daniel, I'm here to celebrate your day. That's all." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't defiance, just truth. And that truth lingered in the air between us, creating a loop back to all those years he depended on me, trusted me, leaned on me. For a moment, I saw the little boy inside him trying to surface. But then Emily's hand curled around his arm, pulling him back into the narrative she had constructed. She whispered something I couldn't hear, but I saw his jaw clench. "Mom, can we talk outside?" The request was polite, but the tension beneath it pulsed like an exposed wire. I nodded and followed them to a quiet hallway just outside the ceremony doors, while Robert stayed behind, greeting guests like he belonged there, which, in that moment, he absolutely did. The hallway felt colder, quieter, as if the venue itself was listening. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Mom, why didn't you tell me you were bringing someone?" His tone wasn't angry. It was nervous. Scared, even. Like my presence with someone by my side complicated a narrative he had promised someone else. I steadied my breath. "Daniel, I'm here to celebrate your day. That's all." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't defiance. Just truth. And that truth lingered in the air between us, creating a loop back to all those years he depended on me, trusted me, leaned on me. For a moment, I saw the little boy inside him trying to surface. But then Emily's hand curled around his arm, pulling him back into the narrative she had constructed. She whispered something I couldn't hear, but I saw his jaw clench. "Mom, can we talk outside?" The request was polite, but the tension beneath it pulsed like an exposed wire. I nodded and followed them to a quiet hallway just outside the ceremony doors, while Robert stayed behind, greeting guests like he belonged there, which, in that moment, he absolutely did. The hallway felt colder, quieter, as if the venue itself was listening. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Mom, why didn't you tell me you were bringing someone?" His tone wasn't angry. It was nervous. Scared, even. Like my presence with someone by my side complicated a narrative he had promised someone else. I steadied my breath. "Daniel, I'm here to celebrate your day. That's all." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't defiance. Just truth. And that truth lingered in the air between us, creating a loop back to all those years he depended on me, trusted me, leaned on me. For a moment, I saw the little boy inside him trying to surface. But then Emily's hand curled around his arm, pulling him back into the narrative she had constructed. She whispered something I couldn't hear, but I saw his jaw clench. "Mom, can you just stay in the seat assigned?" His words weren't cruel, but the weight of them pressed against every memory I had ever cherished. I nodded slowly, not in agreement, but in painful understanding. "All right," I whispered, "if that's really what you want." His face softened almost instantly. He reached out as if to comfort me, but Emily tugged his arm, redirecting him back toward the ceremony hall. The two of them walked away, and for the first time all morning, I felt the crack deep inside me echo through my ribs. Not because of the seat, not because of the embarrassment, but because my son, my only son, had asked me to shrink so someone else could shine. I stayed there for a moment, collecting the pieces of my breath, reminding myself that storms don't erase mountains, they shape them. Then I straightened my shoulders and went back inside to find Robert. He saw my expression immediately and stepped forward with a gentle, quiet question. "Are you all right?" I gave a small nod. "I will be." And the truth was, I didn't yet know what was about to happen next. I didn't know the entire wedding was minutes away from turning on its axis. I didn't know 50 people would soon gather around me. I didn't know Emily's story she tried to control was about to slip out of her hands in the most public way possible. But it was coming. And it would start with a single voice calling my name. I stood there at the reception hall entrance with Mr. Harris by my side, feeling the weight of every stare that clung to us. The room had fallen into that strange hush people get when they don't know whether to be impressed, confused, or offended. And as I looked ahead, I saw my son, my only child, staring back at me as if he didn't recognize the woman who raised him. For a moment, I wondered if I had gone too far. But then the loop tightened again, reminding me why I was here. Because a mother shouldn't have to accept being pushed into a corner on the biggest day of her son's life. My heels tapped against the polished floor as I walked deeper inside, each step slow and steady, giving the moment the kind of gravity it needed. The earlier humiliation of being told to sit in the back was still burning in my chest, but now I had arrived with a man who refused to let me believe I was worth any less than the front row. That shift, my humiliation to my reclaiming, was the emotional thread pulling everything forward, guiding the listeners of this story and giving them something to hold on to. The decorations glowed gold in the soft lighting, and beneath all that beauty lived a tension so thick I could taste it. My daughter-in-law, Amanda, stood by the head table in her white lace gown, hands gripping her bouquet so tightly the stems bent. Her eyes darted between me and the man beside me with a mixture of panic and disbelief, as if she hadn't expected consequences to arrive on two legs wearing a gray suit. For everyone listening to this story on Celeb Pulse, this is one of those moments when everything inside a family shifts, when the masks fall and the truth becomes too loud to ignore. And that's why stories like these matter, because they reflect real people, real emotions, and the breaking point between respect and disrespect. My son finally moved towards us, stiff and controlled, but the tension in his jaw betrayed him. He stopped just a foot away, lowering his voice as though the entire room wasn't already hanging on every breath he took. "Mom," he whispered sharply, What is this? Who is he?" "This," I said, keeping my tone calm to match the slow burn tension of the moment, "is my date." His eyes widened. "Your date? At my wedding?" "Yes," I replied. "You told me to sit in the back. You made it clear I wasn't important enough to sit with family. So I brought someone who thinks I deserve better." That connection point, my reminder of his words, hung between us, tying this confrontation back to the humiliation in Section 1 and deepening the emotional continuity. Mr. Harris glanced at me, his quiet presence speaking more loudly than any dramatic speech could have. He was there to support me, not to stir drama, and that alone seemed to unsettle my son even more. "You're causing a scene," he hissed. "No," I said calmly. "You caused the scene when you decided your own mother wasn't worthy of a seat near you." Behind him, Amanda approached, but there was nothing soft or bridal about her posture. She leaned in, her voice dripping with that familiar condescension. "If you wanted attention, you could have just asked instead of acting." desperate. I felt the sting of her words, but I refused to let them anchor themselves. Instead, I addressed her with a clarity she had never shown me. This isn't about attention, it's about respect. Something I have given both of you since the beginning, something you never returned. Her nostrils flared, but before she could reply, guests began murmuring again, their whispers surrounding us like a soft drum roll. A few guests shifted closer, phones subtly angled our way. The drama was now public, and neither my son nor Amanda could pretend their treatment of me was private anymore. And this, right here, is where the loop circles back. Because every story, especially the ones we share on Celeb Pulse, finds its power in the moments when hidden truths are finally forced into the light. Mr. Harris stepped forward, but not aggressively. His voice was steady, firm, protective. If this young man wants his mother to sit in the back, she can certainly do so, but she won't be sitting alone. My son stiffened at the challenge cloaked in kindness. The room leaned in, the energy shifted, and for the first time, I saw something in my son's expression I hadn't seen since he was a teenager. Doubt. Doubt in the woman he chose. Doubt in the decisions he made to keep peace in his marriage at the cost of peace in his family. Doubt in how far he had let things spiral. Amanda stepped between him and Mr. Harris, her voice too loud to hide her panic anymore. This is my wedding, not hers, not his, mine, and I won't have some random man embarrassing us. He's not random, I replied softly but firmly. He's someone who respects me. That line, that emotional anchor, closed the loop perfectly, connecting my current strength to the earlier moment of being dismissed. It was the turning point that shifted the entire power dynamic in the room. My son exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair as though trying to pull himself together. The facade was cracking, the guests were watching, and the wedding he thought he had under control was suddenly peeling apart, thread by thread. And for those listening, don't forget, if you're drawn into this unfolding tension, make sure you subscribe to Celeb Pulse so you never miss stories that dive deep into family, emotion, betrayal, and the unexpected twists that define real lives. My son looked at the head table, then at the guests, then back at me. And in that moment, something inside him seemed to shift, as though the weight of all his choices had finally settled on his shoulders. He swallowed hard and said quietly, "Mom, maybe we should talk." But Amanda snapped. "No, we are not talking to her. She's sitting in the back. That's final." And just like that, another twist, another fracture, another emotional cliff edge edging closer. Because what happened next would change every relationship in that room, including theirs. I don't know what startled the room more, the insult my son threw at me, or the silence that followed. But before anyone could breathe, before anyone could even process what had just happened, a voice boomed from the back of the ceremony space. It was strong, deep, and impossible to ignore. "Is this how you speak to your mother on your wedding day?" The entire crowd turned. My date, yes, the unexpected one who had walked in holding my hand, began stepping forward with a calm, commanding presence that made every guest freeze where they stood. This was the moment the loop in my heart tightened again. The moment everything I feared would happen, happened. But another emotion pushed through. Relief. Because I didn't come here alone this time. Not emotionally, not spiritually, not socially, and not in strength. Every paragraph of this day had led me to this exact second, and I could feel the shift in the air as people recognized the man stepping forward. My son's jaw dropped. My daughter-in-law's bouquet nearly slipped from her hands. A few whispers rippled across the front row, and I heard someone murmur, "Is that him?" Even I felt the weight of the twist, because I knew the story was about to split open in ways no one expected.
My date, Daniel, stopped just a few feet from my son, and the quiet tension in the room returned with full force. His voice softened, but the power behind it stayed strong. Your mother raised you. She sacrificed for you. And this is how you repay her? By hiding her in the back like a mistake? Another gasp. My son looked like he'd been punched, but I couldn't look at him long because the connection point in this moment wasn't about him. It was about me finally being seen. I took one slow step forward, not to protect him, not to comfort him, but to stand beside the man who had spoken truth on my behalf, something I never expected from anyone at this wedding, especially him. And yes, this is where the twist tightens further, because now the guests were murmuring louder. They recognized Daniel. My daughter-in-law's mother whispered to her husband, "That's the CEO from the foundation auction last spring." Another said, "The one who paid all those scholarships?" Someone else added, "Isn't he the one who turned down interviewing with the news? The one who doesn't even attend events?" That's when I saw the panic flash across my daughter-in-law's face. She wasn't expecting this. She wasn't expecting him. She certainly wasn't expecting the crowd to know exactly who he was. My son glanced back at his bride as though silently asking if she had known. She looked trapped, cornered in her own misunderstanding, and I felt that loop, not on my heart now, but around the truth. What they had dismissed, what they had tried to minimize, suddenly held more power than their entire ceremony. I knew I needed to keep the connection between paragraphs flowing, so I breathed in deeply and spoke for the first time in minutes. I didn't come here to embarrass anyone. I didn't come here to make a scene. I came here because I was invited to my son's wedding, and I expected to be treated like a mother, not a burden. The words were calm, steady, and surprisingly gentle, even for me, but their impact spread like a quiet explosion. My son swallowed hard. I could see the way guilt and pride fought behind his eyes, and when he finally spoke, his voice trembled in a way I hadn't heard since he was a little boy. "Mom, I didn't mean," but his bride cut him off. "Stop apologizing," she snapped, desperation dripping from her voice. "We planned this wedding for months, and I didn't want anything ruining it." Her eyes flicked toward me, then Daniel, then the guests. And why couldn't she just sit where we asked? Why did she have to bring him? And there it was, the truth. Not hidden, not sugar-coated, raw and ugly. But the twist wasn't done yet. Daniel stepped forward again, but this time his expression softened in a way only I could understand. He said quietly, "I didn't come here as anything other than her guest, but I will say this, any wedding that fears a mother's presence is already missing its foundation." A shiver went down the room. Even I felt it. My son looked at his bride with a mixture of confusion and rejection, and he whispered, "Did you really make her sit in the back? After everything she did? After everything she's been through?" His bride opened her mouth to argue, but he cut her off for the first time all day. "No, not today. Not anymore." Then he walked toward me, slowly, hesitantly, painfully, and when he reached me, he dropped his head. "I'm sorry, Mom." The apology was soft, broken, real. But before I could respond, the twist landed its final blow. My daughter-in-law threw her bouquet at the floor, turned, and stormed out of her own wedding. Gasps, whispers, cameras rising, guests standing. The entire ceremony shattered in a blink. My son stared after her, shocked and hollow. I felt the loop reconnect, full circle, in a way I never expected. Because instead of running after her, instead of choosing sides, he turned back toward me. "Can you stay with me?" he asked. I nodded, and for the first time in years, I stood beside him, not behind him, not in the back, but exactly where a mother belongs. And that's when the true dramatic twist echoed across the room. Daniel stepped quietly beside me and whispered, "Guess the world finally knows who you are too." I smiled, because he was right.